One of the world's most dangerous shallow areas right now isn't a raging battlefield, but a narrow yet critically important sea lane through which nearly a fifth of the world's oil is transported daily. And now that area is at risk of being controlled as tensions between the US and Iran escalate to levels not seen in years. In recent days, the US has begun implementing what is seen as a selective blockade of Iran by deploying a series of warships into the Persian Gulf, particularly near the Strait of Hormuz, a strategic location where any disruption could have global consequences. This is not an official declaration of war, but it bears the full hallmarks of a calculated military move, with the main goal of the US being to exert economic pressure on Iran through control of its oil flow, the country's most important source of revenue. The Strait of Hormuz is not just an ordinary shipping route, it's like a valve for the global economy, where tens of millions of barrels of oil pass through, powering major economies from Asia to Europe. Even a small disruption there can cause oil prices to skyrocket, leading to increases in gasoline prices, transportation costs, and a host of other essential goods. This means that no matter where you are, what's happening in the Middle East can directly impact your daily life. The deployment of US warships is not only symbolic, but also has practical enforcement capabilities, as these ships can inspect, intercept, or even detain oil tankers suspected of being linked to Iran. Furthermore, the appearance of modern fighter jets, like the F-35, shows that the US is preparing for war scenarios, from surveillance to rapid response to the situation spiral out of control. This creates immense pressure on Iran because if its oil exports are disrupted, its economy will suffer severely. As expected, Iran reacted strongly to this move. They not only condemned the US action, but also warned that such a blockade violated international law. More importantly, Iran has repeatedly emphasized that if cornered, they could retaliate by disrupting the Strait of Hormuz itself, a move that could throw the entire global energy market into chaos. This is what makes the situation dangerous, because with both sides possessing cards, that could inflict significant damage on the other. The risk of escalation is unavoidable. The worrying thing is that in situations like these, war doesn't necessarily have to start with a major decision. Sometimes a small incident can spark conflict. A ship being intercepted, a warning being misinterpreted, or a defensive action being interpreted as an attack, all can lead to chain reactions that neither side can fully control. History has shown that many major conflicts begin from seemingly minor incidents. However, it's also important to recognize that both the US and Iran understand the cost of a full-scale war. For the US, opening another major front in the Middle East would drain resources and could put significant pressure on its domestic economy and politics. For Iran, a direct conflict with a military superpower would also have unpredictable consequences. Therefore, despite high tensions, both sides are trying to keep the situation from crossing a safety line. Meanwhile, the outside world is also closely monitoring developments. Financial markets react almost immediately to news related to the region, and oil prices have begun to show signs of rising as the risk of supply disruptions becomes clearer. International economic organizations also warn that if the situation continues to escalate, it could lead to higher inflation and slow down the global economic recovery. Another factor worth noting is the role of other countries in the region and the world. Countries heavily dependent on Middle Eastern oil would be severely affected if the Strait of Hormuz were disrupted. At the same time, other major powers could be drawn into the conflict if it escalates, potentially spreading from a two-country issue to a larger one. Currently, the situation is highly volatile, where things could change in a very short time. There are three main scenarios that could unfold. The first is for both sides to de-escalate tension through diplomatic channels. While this is not easy, it remains the least risky option. The second is for tensions to persist, with blockades and reciprocal responses, but without leading to direct conflict. And the final and most worrying scenario is escalation into a full-blown military confrontation. Currently, the world seems to be in the midst of the second scenario, where things are still relatively under control, but the risk of outbreaks remains ever present. What worries many people is not what has already happened, but what might happen next, because in such a tense environment, just one unexpected event could change the entire situation. In short, what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz is not just a regional issue, but a story with global implications. From oil prices and the economy to international security, everything could be impacted by the decisions made in the coming days. And while we continue to watch, the biggest question remains unanswered. Will this tension be contained, or will it be the start of a larger crisis? If you want to stay up to date on the latest developments and gain a better understanding of what's really happening behind major events like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next analysis. Because in a rapidly changing world, accurate information is crucial for understanding and preparing for the future.